You know what happens a lot? Jacked up layers. Have you ever been there? Been in the salon, went in for just a trim, all of a sudden next thing you know, you've got this going on? There you go. Looks awesome, right?
Dude, what did you do? It looks like a mullet.
It's called a mulet. It's French. I think it means like luxurious hair or something.
People aren't gonna know whether or not they should shake my hand or pet me.
They're gonna be too busy giving you a high five for looking like a rock star.
I don't look like a rock star.
Well, hey, don't sweat it. I'm heading to the salon right now. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share all the important things, the things that you need to do right now to make sure that you love your hair again quick. So let's roll. The first key is don't freak out. I know how bad and frustrating layers that are going wrong can be. I know it can be scary. You're wondering what you're gonna do with your hair. It feels like it's totally destroyed, but don't destroy it, it's not. I've got some tips that I'm gonna share with you that are gonna help you out a ton. By the way, sorry, side note, if you are just joining me, if you've never been on my channel before, my name is Justin Hickox, and on this channel, I basically share tips, making hair simple for you, things that I've learned over 25 years of doing, God, that sounds like a long time, 25 years of doing hair with some of the best stylists in the world, to make hair simple for you. So whether or not you're a stylist, trying to learn how to build a clientele, or if you're a client, just trying to figure out how to work with your hair easier, I'm just gonna share the tips that I know to make that simple for you. So today, again, we're talking about layers gone wrong, and I'm here to tell you that there is a way, there is a system that I can share with you, that I'm going to share with you, that's gonna help you get through this unfortunate grow out process. So don't stress it, I got you covered, but let's jump into tip number one. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is figure out what's going wrong. There's typically kind of two different culprits. Either the top layers are cut too short for the length, or it's too layered. So an easy way to check to see if the top is too short, the length that you have your hair determines in some ways how short you take the layers. Imagine if you've got hair down to here and your top layers, you comb them up and they're only this long, they're gonna be too short for the overall length. They're not gonna balance well. So they have to be long enough to balance with the overall length. Now, if that's not going on and you're like, well, they're long enough, but I'm still having issues, it could be the other thing, which is meaning that it's over layered. Easy way to check that is if you take your hair and part it from your recession back to your occipital bone, take apart and comb all the top stuff out of the way, and then just comb down the sides and take a look at it. If at the end you see a lot of layers and it starts to get very thin at the ends, there's a high probability that it's been over layered at the ends, and that makes it kind of look shattered and piecey and doesn't support shape very well internally. That could be another issue. But determining which of those, or if both of those, is going wrong, then that's gonna help us kind of determine how to best address the issues. And coming up, I'm gonna explain kind of what that means, but the first things first is just figure out which of those or if both of those are going on. Okay, so sorry guys, my throat's dry, you're gonna come with me. So tip number two is all about figuring out kind of a goal, if you will. You need to figure out a direction you're gonna head. What do you want your hair to end up like? And the reason that this is important is because, again, tip number one and this tip are gonna help you figure out exactly what to do with your hair. It's gonna help you figure out the best mode of action on how to start growing these layers out, because there are different ways. There's not just one way. So having something in mind of kind of where you wanna end, what kind of style do you want? Because maybe that style that you want doesn't require you to grow the top layers that much longer. Maybe it would allow you to grow the bottom layers out, cut those off, and by the time you know it, before you even realize it, all of a sudden the layering is the correct form for the style you're trying to get into. Then it's just about shaping it for that style. We don't know yet. So having a specific thing in mind, having that goal in mind is hugely important. And then moving into the next tip, I'm gonna share, okay, now how do we address what's going on with your hair right now and start moving towards that goal? Okay, so tip number three is where we take tip number one and two, bring them together and start putting them into action. We figured out what's going wrong with the layering and we figured out where we want to end up. Now it's time to figure out how do we get there? How do we get from point A to point B? So here's the biggest thing to remember. If it's just something where you looked at it and you said, you know what, it's just layered too much at the bottom, right? Then in that scenario, we just have to figure out, well, how much length are you willing to lose? Is it more important that you have length with bad layers? Is that more comfortable for you? Or is it more comfortable for you that you have less length, but layers that function? Figure out where you're at on that spectrum and then say, okay, well, hey, if I want to take up if I want to fix this and it's only layered at the bottom too much, then I can just bring it to here and basically have a fresh slate to work with. Now I can do whatever I want and it's only a little bit shorter. Problem solved. Yeah, it's shorter than it was when I went, ideally it's shorter than I wanted it, right? But I still feel comfortable at this length, so I'm good. So we figured out where we need to go. Plan of action, boom, cut that length off and you're done. And that's all that needs to be done. Now, on the other hand, you might be in a scenario where your layers are too short on top. Then we have to figure out, okay, where are we going? Well, I want to see more length. I want to see it longer than I have it right now and a little bit of light layering. Well, great. We know that we're not going to make these top layers longer, right? They're not going to just get longer because we cut it shorter. And it may be that taking enough length out of it to get it to a place where the layers actually balance is so short that even though they balance at that length, you're not only are you not going to be comfortable with it, but you're also going to be so much farther from your end goal that it's not worth it. In that scenario, we basically have to just work with the shape as it is, bring a little bit of length up, let the layers grow, a little bit more length up, let the layers grow, and continue to do that until we get to a shape that balances and then let it all grow from there. Now we need to figure out, well, what do I tell my stylists? And here's a big tip. When you walk into the salon, especially when you're trying to grow out layers, we need to be very clear. Do not talk in inches. This will inevitably be your inch and this will be a stylist's inch. Be very specific visually. Hey, I'm trying to grow my layers out. These are not working for me. I don't want any length taken off the layers. I just want this length at the bottom taken a little bit shorter. I only want this much out of it. I want the length to go from here to there, but I don't want anything shorter than this. Just a little bit off, but being very specific. Not saying, hey, just take the tips off. Not saying, just give me a dusting. Not saying, just give me, an inch off or just take, a little bit off. Be very specific. Okay, my last tip, now this is an important one, don't miss this. There are a few things that people don't take into consideration when they're trying to grow their hair out. We always think about things that we can do for our scalp, things that we can do internally, which is really super important. And in fact, if you want to check out the video that I made that actually deals specifically with foods and minerals and nutrients that you can take right now that are gonna help your hair grow, things that you can do for your body that are actually gonna start stimulating more growth, faster growth in your hair, make sure you click on the link, I'll put it up here. But finish watching this one first and then go back to that one because you don't want to miss this tip. So there are physical things that we do to our hair on a day-to-day basis that add damage. We think about irons, we think about hot tools, we think about all of those things, but we're missing some key factors. For instance, what kind of rubber band are you pulling it back with? Are you pulling it back with a rubber band? Are you pulling it back with a scrunchie? What are you using? How thick is that? The thinner the band is, the more damage, stress it's gonna put on your hair. That means when you're pulling it back and you're trying to get your hair longer, you're trying to get those layers longer, the ends of those layers can be right at that band, and the next thing you know, little do you realize you're just damaging and breaking the bonds in that hair and just weakening it and then not knowing why your layers are never growing out. Also, think about things like car seats, like seat belts, where they wrap around, where your hair is sitting. Just this, in some textures, just the simple act of the seat belt rubbing against constantly your hair, that can be enough to damage those ends, and then those ends won't grow out. Same thing goes for purse straps, if you're wearing your purse over the shoulder, or if you're wearing backpacks a lot. All of those things actually matter, so pay attention to them. If you've never heard of a product called Olaplex, Olaplex is amazing. It's one of the only products out there that actually repairs what they call the disulfide bonds. Disulfide bonds in your hair break down every day. It's kind of like a shoestring, right? If your shoestring doesn't have one string, it's 100 strings that create one string. But if 50 of those strings break down, all of a sudden that particular shoestring doesn't hold its shape, it just kind of limp, right? It's more susceptible to breaking, all of those things. Your hair is the same way. All of those disulfide bonds that break down every day on all the little things that you do day in and day out will make your hair weaker. It will keep it from holding the right amount of bend, which means that it's not holding shape and volume the way you want it to. And the only thing I've seen so far, at the time I made this video, that can replace or repair those disulfide bonds is Olaplex. So check that out. Otherwise, you guys, I hope this helped you figure out not just a plan, but share also some tips on how to get those layers back to a shape where you can actually manage it. And if you've got a trick that you've been using, I wanna know, what have you been doing that's making your hair grow? Have you been doing something that's just been like, my hair is off the charts, silly long? Comment, let me know, I wanna know. But make sure, do not forget, this video is a part of a series of videos on getting hair longer healthy hair, growing out shapes, growing out gray hair, all of that stuff. So make sure you check out the rest of the series so that you don't miss out any of the good info. Hey, and that's it. So you know what? You have a great night. I appreciate you. Do not forget, subscribe, hit that bell if that's your thing. Make sure that you get notified when I bring out brand new videos at least weekly. And if you have any questions, like I said, you know where I'm at. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Eat well. Bye.